Hi, this is Mark. Welcome back to my channel, What Burns My Ass. This is a channel where I tell you the things that burn my ass. You tell me whether or not they burn your ass too. So in this video, we're going to discuss the MOD, which is the military term of mode of operation of both our political parties in Congress. Americans should be discussing with both political parties and their inability to be able to get along together long enough in order to solve our nation's acute issues. Many issues could be easily resolved if we didn't have two political parties acting like two contentious children left home alone who can't stand each other. In this video, I'm going to use the congressional hearings on sanctuary cities and jurisdictions, and I'm going to expose the Democrats for their disingenuous arguments to continue to not comply with our nation's immigration laws. In my opinion, we should expect more from our political leaders. If we can't get both political parties to change in order to be able to work together, that burns my ass. So in these next few video clips, we're going to watch the congressional hearings recently held in Congress on immigration. And we're going to see the vast difference between the Democrats and the Republicans and their views on immigration. Both the immigrants that came over here the last 4 years and the ones that are presently here. And you're going to see that the Democrats really have learned nothing from their election loss in 2024. Matter of fact, Jamie Raskin brought up, instead of talking about illegal immigration, he decided to say that Donald Trump stole billions of dollars from everyone's 401k. And Representative Pamela Jayapal decided to say that Donald Trump killed police officers on January 6th, which is not true because no police officers actually died on January 6th. And then we're going to turn, and then you got Jasmine Crockett, of course, which of course brought up everything's racist. It's all racism. It's the racist card. And it's absolutely astonishing that they've learned nothing. And then you got somebody like Wesley Hunt who came in and brought a wonderful woman named Diana Carter Waters. And she talked about how illegal immigrants are getting priority on social services over natural-born American citizens. And a lot of times these immigrants end up in lower-income neighborhoods inside of Chicago, which, of course, adversely works against African Americans more than almost any other minority in those neighborhoods. So and yet Americans aren't up in arms. Yet you look at the major cities and states that are in a deficit. They're California, Washington, Illinois, New York, Maine, Massachusetts, and Maryland. And there's huge crimes in those sanctuaries. There's a huge amount of crime. There's a huge increase in crime in those cities. There's a huge deficit in all those cities for the social services, paying for these illegal immigrants to stay in places that Americans couldn't even afford. And yet the Democrats have learned nothing. So anyways, let's go ahead and watch these video clips. You're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. And, we should expect more from our elected officials. And if we don't, it burns my ass.
During the last 4 years, the Democrats deliberately trafficked into our country more than 8 million unvetted and illegal migrants, including some of the most dangerous, vicious, and violent criminals and cartels in the world. They did nothing when local law enforcement agencies from across this country warned this committee that foreign criminal cartels and gangs were establishing themselves throughout the country. The Sinaloa cartel, Tren de Aragua, MS-13 prominent among them. When the grieving families of the victims of their policies were introduced on the House floor, the Democrats sat in stony, contemptuous silence. When those same families warned this committee about the devastating effect of these sanctuary policies, the Democrats offered platitudes and then implied they were exaggerating the threat. When local and federal law enforcement officials warned that these policies were endangering law enforcement officers and the communities themselves, the Democrats ridiculed them. Well, the American people finally had enough.
And you can see that they had enough. I mean, the election, sure, they only won slightly more of the popular, but that's what the Democrats want you to believe. But the reality is, the shift from Democrat to Republican is staggering, and they don't want you to look at that. They don't want you to see that at all. They just want you to believe that, Donald Trump just barely won, and it's insane. But anyways, Pamela Jayapal is coming up next, and you're going to see how ridiculous she is, and and then starting to bring up how Donald Trump killed policemen on January 6th. It's astonishing. This is a committee on immigration, and these are the things she chooses to bring up, and she's she's blaming Donald Trump for getting rid of what was obviously a MS-13 non-citizen, and you see what she means. And actually, to be honest with you, she does have some points that there should be some more due process, and I get that. But still, there's still no excuse to sit here and discuss a whole bunch of topics which actually had nothing to do with immigration. So let's go ahead and you'll see exactly what I mean.
Perhaps the chairman would have this level of concern for the victims of senseless gun violence across this country. 47,000 people who were killed from gun violence just in 1 year alone. Or perhaps the chairman would have this level of concern for the families of law enforcement that were killed during the January 6th insurrection on the United States Capitol, or even the families that are suffering from rising grocery prices and devastated retirement accounts thanks to Donald Trump's chaotic economic policy. Ever since Donald Trump came into office, my colleagues have been very happy to sit back and let him run completely roughshod over our laws. President Trump, Tom Homan, Stephen Miller, all led you to believe that this attack on immigrants was supposed to be about criminal immigrants. It was supposed to be about people who threaten public safety, despite the fact that research clearly shows that immigrants commit fewer crimes than Americans. They actually led you to believe that they were for the immigrants who did things legally. I can't tell you how many times on this committee I've sat here as my Republican colleagues say, we're not against legal immigration, we're for the people who do things legally. They led you to believe that legal immigrants had nothing to worry about, people on permanent residence status or legal visas or legal status. They even led you to believe that somehow getting rid of immigrants would be good for American jobs, that it would bring down costs for the American public, and that this was all about caring for you versus them, some shady criminal immigrant that might be invading our communities. Well, as people's 401k accounts plummet with Trump's economic policies, as costs of everything that Americans need to buy keep going up instead of down, the effects of Trump's unconstitutional and unlawful actions against all immigrants are causing fear and havoc in our communities across the country. Let me be clear. Trump has targeted immigrants who are here lawfully, suspending refugee admissions, a program that, by the way, was once hailed by both Republicans and Democrats and the faith community everywhere as the cornerstone of humanitarian assistance. They are revoking the very programs that created legal pathways for immigrants to enter, that effectively brought down the numbers at the border. And in revoking student visas and green cards of legal permanent residents, many of whom are married to U.S. citizens, they are going after every single immigrant in America, fabricating stories about these immigrants being, quote, criminals, even deporting them to other countries in violation of all of this. Leads us to ask once again, as the Fourth Circuit said earlier this week, in the case of a Maryland father who was, quote, mistakenly deported to a Salvadorian prison by the Trump administration. If due process is of no moment, what is stopping the government from refusing and removing to return a lawful permanent resident or even a natural-born citizen? That is a quote from the judge in the decision.
So now you can see here, she's fear-mongering because she knows that Maryland man was never a U.S. citizen. He violated his visa. He beat his wife. She had a restraining order. Matter of fact, recently an interview was done with Michael Strahan, and he asked her, were you afraid of your husband? And she says, all I know is he's alive, which means she didn't want to answer the question. But they wasted this. One of these congressmen went down there to try to get him back. They know what they're doing. They're wasting the taxpayers' dollars going after people that shouldn't have been in this country. And, they're talking about immigrants, by the way. The students that are being tossed out, these are Hamas. These are people that are protesting on the behalf of Hamas. When you violate your visa or your residency, if you're going to protest for basically what is a terrorist organization, but they won't bring that up. They're just making you think that Donald Trump is throwing everybody out, no matter if you're a good or bad immigrant. It's irrelevant. He's throwing them all out. That's disingenuous. They consistently lie, and they know it. Let's go ahead and watch these next video clips. You can see exactly the continuation of this absolute insane premise that they keep trying to convince the American people of. It's unbelievable.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ms. Jayapal, and greetings to the witnesses. Donald Trump's ruinous tariffs and calamitous trade war against the world, except for Russia, have crashed the stock market and cost American workers and retirees and farmers $11 trillion in 1 week.
What does this have to do with immigration?
1 week.
Nothing.
And the Republican majority in the House could stop this nightmare today by exercising our powers over international commerce. But they prefer to own the tariffs and own the trade war. We'll see how well that works out for them going into the future. It's certainly not working out well for the American people. Now desperate to displace attention from this world historical economic debacle and the fact that courts have struck down more than 55 of their lawless, unconstitutional executive orders and actions, they invite us to discuss again immigration. So be it. In New York City, Donald Trump's deportation force grabbed green card holder Mahmoud Khalil for exercising his First Amendment rights in a way that Donald Trump disapproved of. Now they're trying to deport him, as well as other students across the country, using a McCarthy-era statute that the president's own sister, Judge Marianne Trump Berry, declared to be, quote, unconstitutional on its face. Then they tried to extra-legally deport more than 100 Venezuelans, shackling them and putting them on planes bound to a self-proclaimed dictator's infamous mega prison in El Salvador under cover of night based on an 18th century law about wartime authorities called the Alien Enemies Act, which palpably did not apply to this case because we are at peacetime, the power to declare war under our...
So you can see the disingenuous arguments that continue to go on with the Democrats. He mainly just brought up most of his time that he had, because I think they only get 5 minutes at a time to speak. He wasted his time discussing Donald Trump's economic theories, and it has nothing to do with. And by the way, he brought up Mahmoud Khalil, and he's saying that he just illegally threw him out of the country or tried to deport him. Mahmoud Khalil was part of a takeover of a public building in a university, and was protesting and has protested quite a few times publicly for Hamas, which is a terrorist organization. But you notice Jamie Raskin's not going to bring any of that up. Instead, he's going to just fearmonger and also make you believe that anything Donald Trump could do in the future for us economically is automatically going to be a disaster, because that's what they want their Democrat voters to believe. It's absolutely insane. So let's go ahead and check out the next few video clips. It just continues.
But some of the actions in a few of the sanctuary jurisdictions, I want you to ask you if you think they're conducive to public safety. In King County, Seattle, illegal alien named Julio Cruz Velasquez, custody in 2019 with priors for rape, domestic violence, burglary, robbery, DUI, drug possession dating back to 2010. King County ignored the ICE detainers, released him into the community. He was then arrested later on for murder. It would have never happened if you'd have just complied with ICE. Does that sound conducive to public safety? No. It doesn't, of course not. The stories go on. Washington County, also in your state, illegal alien Alejandro Melania Hernandez was arrested for manslaughter in a second degree for killing somebody while driving recklessly. The county ignored an ICE detainer, released him into the community, and he is still at large today. Does that sound conducive to public safety, Sheriff?
No.
Of course it doesn't. Let's go to Boston. April this year, Boston released an illegal alien charged with aggravated child rape rather than comply with an ICE detainer. Does that sound like conducive to public safety?
No.
Of course it doesn't, and the story goes on and on and on. Mr. Franco, we go to Baltimore. April 24, Raul Calderon, a 25-year-old Guatemalan national convicted of fourth-degree sex offense and second-degree assault. Despite ICE detainer's request, Baltimore County released him after suspending his prison sentence. Then in 2024, another individual, 25 years old, convicted of molesting two family members, 9 and 10 years old. It just goes on and on and on. Now, Baltimore has problems. You got a lot of corruption in Baltimore. Again, when you look at these major cities, Baltimore, Chicago, everywhere, they're run by far-left liberal Democrats and by Soros-funded DAs. And that's why you're getting clobbered in elections. The American people are sick and tired of it, and they're fighting back. Ms. Walters, I salute you.
So there you go. See, Mr. Niels, Representative Niels, he just, he tells it like it is, and it makes sense. And you're going to see that the mayor from Baltimore a little bit, his complete delusionment about what's actually going on in his own city. It's incredible how this man is a mayor and knows nothing about the crime and other social topics that are going on inside his own city. He does not know. You'll see what I mean.
HS's own data, mind you, found that at least 65% of the states and local agencies voluntarily working with ICE have records of racial profiling and civil rights violations. Mr. Franklin, first of all, and Sheriff, let me thank you for your service too, because I appreciate law enforcement. I just want to put that out there. But Mr. Franklin, Major Franklin, you're a decorated law enforcement officer. Yes or no, in your experience, does racially profiling people make communities safer?
No.
And yes or no, does ICE forcing state or local law enforcement to detain people make communities safer?
Now you could see she was playing the race card. Her questions literally make no sense. Because you could see that Mr. Niels, prior to that, already explained to them that there's these criminals getting away with crimes because of exactly what she's talking about. If they commit a crime, they shouldn't be turned over to ICE. Nope, they should just be let go. And then they turn around, they commit another crime, and she doesn't bring any of that up. She's just talking about race, which is typically all Jasmine Crockett ever does when it comes to almost any topic. It's always about race. I don't understand how she stays in office. It's staggering. It burns my ass. Let's move on.
Since the Democrats do not like the result of the election, you would think that they will be focusing on the midterms coming up, but instead they are engaging in a judicial coup d'etat. The reason they are not focused on the midterms is because they are not confident that they can take back control of the House of Representatives in 2 years because they have no leader and they have no valid message. The Democrat Party has a 21% approval rating with voters in this country. And why? Because their only message is Trump is bad. They've gone so far as to attack people for driving electric vehicles. They openly admit that they are DEI hires, and they claim that the reason they're not popular with voters right now is because they are not opposing Trump enough. That's the reaction to their failure. Their solution is to become more extreme and more unpopular with their policies. This question must be asked: does the Democrat Party hate President Trump more than they love our country and more than they love the safety of my fellow Americans? This might explain why they are willing to overtly defend members of Trinidad-Aragua MS-13 rather than stand up and clap for a child with a terminal brain cancer illness, or for a young man admitted to West Point, my alma mater, or for a family of the gentleman who was murdered in Butler, Pennsylvania. Trump derangement syndrome is real. It's a real thing. And sanctuary policies are harming my fellow Americans, as my witnesses have testified here today. This U.S. congressman is tired of seeing mothers, daughters, and wives of Americans raped, maimed, and murdered by Trinidad Aragua and MS-13 and other violent criminals that have snuck across the border to destroy this great nation. All of us should support ICE raids, the hard work of Tom Homan, Customs and Border Protection, and the policies of our duly elected Commander-in-Chief. Being here, ma'am, I really appreciate your testimony earlier. And your experience specifically in Chicago, are communities of colors disproportionately impacted by illegal migrants getting special privileges? And if so, how?
Yes, so they are placed in our communities. They are not placed anywhere else but in our communities. And they are taking over our schools. So whereas you already had overcrowded schooling, so you might have 20 to 1 class. Now you have 40 to 1 class, and then they don't speak English. So now that's taken away from the child already who is already in an overcrowded classroom. And then you have where now we can't even, they took over our parks. So where you'll have grandmoms and things, kids, to keep the kids off the street, they house illegals into the field houses. So they took over our field houses. And then now apartments, whereas because our mayor is paying so much money for illegals to house them, now we have tenants that can't even, the landlords that won't even rent to American citizens because they're renting to illegals because they get paid more for illegals.
Now, let me ask you the next question, ma'am. You've been black for a pretty long time, right?
Yes.
So me too. I mean, I've been black for my entire life, so just want to acknowledge that. So by basically what you're saying, do you view yourself as a different American, or do you just care about the safety of our community? Are you a racist for feeling this way?
No.
And Sheriff Wagner, thank you so much for your service. I really appreciate all you've done for this great country. You've been a hostage negotiator, detective, a patrol sergeant, and sheriff. Your accolades are unbelievable. My question for you is this. What are the Democrats in your state doing to prevent you from doing your job? And do you expect more of this, or are you not allowed to enforce the law?
It's come down to I'm not allowed to or else. And that's really what we're faced with. We have an attorney general that is going by his marching orders, whatever you want to call it, and coming after our little agency to serve as a message to the rest of the state of Washington. And if you look behind me, that's why these sheriffs are here today. They all feel the heat. They feel the situation is bearing down on us. We're only 39 sheriffs in our state, and our state needs sheriffs, believe it or not. But they keep trying the attack constantly.
Thank you. And as somebody that has worn the uniform, I understand the importance of leadership, and it starts at the top. Thank you so much for what you've done for our great nation.
There you go. It's a Democrat-run state. He wants to be able to do his job. If they catch people that are here illegally, he wants to be able to communicate with ICE to get them deported. And the leadership in Washington State does not want him to do his job. It's astonishing that the Democrats have learned nothing from 2024. It burns my ass. It does. It's baffling. It's out of control, baffling. So let's go ahead and we're going to watch the next clip, and the astonishment continues.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for holding this hearing. I think Ms. Walters, said it best that we had a secure border under President Trump in his first term, that Joe Biden opened the floodgates, and now President Trump is cleaning up Joe Biden's mess. So that was very well said. I'd like to begin with Major Franklin. Thank you for being here. Do you know what percentage of illegal aliens reside in sanctuary cities, roughly?
No, I don't.
It's about 56%, rough numbers. And is it your testimony, and I've got your written testimony here, that local law enforcement should not dedicate time and resources towards information sharing and detainer requirements?
It's about, generally speaking, yes, it's about the context.
It's about the context, so I'll take that.
Specific circumstances, yeah.
So there's some criminal illegal aliens they should
I think
release.
it's more about having good policies on how and when the communication will occur.
Okay, we'll come back to that. Let me ask you, do sanctuary city policies and mass illegal immigration help American citizens enter the labor force? Yes or no?
I don't know. That's not my area of expertise.
Okay, you don't know. Do sanctuary cities and mass illegal immigration help lower housing costs? Yes or no? You don't know? Yep. Do they help reduce the strain on public services or public benefits? You don't know? Okay. Do you think that illegal aliens, you're saying that they should have safe harbor essentially in our cities? Should they have free access to medical care?
They should have access to medical care.
Should they have
That's my personal-
taxpayer subsidized access to medical care?
Depends upon the circumstances, I guess. I don't know.
What about taxpayer subsidized education?
It's not my area of expertise.
Okay, public housing?
Not my
You
area.
don't know? You're inviting them to come into our cities, but you don't have a position on what should happen to them then, other than that illegal aliens should
I'm not
be
inviting
detained.
anyone.
Well, you essentially are, actually. Would you describe Baltimore as a safe city?
What's your definition of safe?
Well, I'm asking you, is Baltimore a safe city? Is it the kind of city that you would want to raise a family and maybe go jogging in without having to be worried about being murdered or raped?
I grew up in Baltimore. My family is in Baltimore. My mother still lives in the same house in West Baltimore.
Is it a safe city?
60-plus years, so the answer is definitely yes.
You think Baltimore is a safe city?
Of course it is.
Okay, do you know what the homicide rate is in Baltimore?
Exactly no.
It's about 35 per 100,000. Do you know what the homicide rate is in the rest of the United States?
No, I don't.
I can tell you that the homicide rate in Baltimore is about 5 times the national average. Do you know how Baltimore's robbery rate compares to the rest of the United States?
At the moment, no, I don't.
You don't? It's about 8.4 times the national average. Do you know how Baltimore's assault rate compares to the national average?
No, I don't.
It's about 3.4 times higher. Does that sound like a safe city to you?
Safe to me and my family members.
So that's safe to you? 5 times higher than the national average for homicides? That's a safe city?
Perception.
It's what, excuse me?
I said it's what for instance, it's perception. It's what you feel as a resident in Baltimore City.
If you're murdered, I don't think it matters what you feel, do you? Is it your testimony that the safety
Baltimore City
depends
is a
on
safe
how
city.
people feel?
To me, Baltimore City is a safe city.
To you, it's a safe city. I don't think it's safe to the people who are being murdered every single weekend there. Let me ask you, picking up on Mr. Knott's questioning, do you think that it's appropriate for local law enforcement to not honor immigration detainers and to release criminal and illegal aliens into our cities?
We go by what the courts dictate.
Well, I'm asking you if you think that that's an appropriate response. You arrest an illegal alien for a crime. That person has an immigration detainer. You think that it's appropriate to release them, yes or no?
When the courts say release them, yes.
Do you think that keeps Baltimore safe?
If it's done appropriately, yes.
No, so you do.
Yes.
You think that that's a good way to keep.
When it's done appropriately according to the law, we cannot sidestep the law because we carry badges. We have to go by the law.
My time has expired. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So there you go. Boy, it seems like this Baltimore mayor didn't know much about his own city that he's lived in his entire life, and his mom is there and all that. He doesn't know. I mean, I've only driven through Baltimore several times, and I think I might have spent an hour or two there once or twice. And I know the reputation of Baltimore, but the mayor that's lived there his entire life doesn't know the reputation. Who is he kidding? See, it's this disingenuousness to fight anything the Republicans are doing or asking or questioning, because they want to look at it in a particular way, as he said, perception. Well, his perception is way off. It's absolutely astonishing. I mean, 5 times the homicide rate and 8 times the robbery rate, and he does it. Amazing. All right, so let's go ahead and see stuff like that burns my ass.
Carter Walters, what's your opinion?
Excuse me?
Do sanctuary laws make our cities more safe or less safe?
less safe.
Mr. Holman, how about you?
It's not even a question. Sanctuary policies put the American people in danger. They undermine the rule of law. They must be stopped. Full speed ahead.
All right, so the Democrats and their witness tell us that we're safer if we release criminals back into our communities. The Republicans and their witnesses say the opposite. I think I'll just let that speak for itself. Sheriff Wagner, the Democratic witness testified that honoring an ICE detainer is unduly burdensome. Do you agree?
I don't believe they are.
Well, how does honoring an ICE detainer differ from having to track down and arrest a criminal alien once they've been released under these sanctuary policies?
You pretty much just explained that. They get released, and it's just harder to get them, hard to go after them, and a lot more dangerous, obviously.
So the ICE detainer simply basically requires a phone call to ICE saying, we've got this individual in our custody, they're about to be released, you've got 48 hours to come and get them.
Correct.
Okay, so that takes about, what, 15 seconds?
I couldn't time it, but I...
And then once that individual has been released because that phone call was not made because of these sanctuary laws, what's involved in apprehending that criminal at that point?
Yeah, well, it depends on who the criminal is, obviously, what they're wanted for, those kind of things. But anytime you go outside and give a person an avenue of escape or a determination not to be caught or taken into custody, you inherently take on a huger risk. I mean, and that's just the reality of what we deal with in law enforcement, not just ICE agents, everybody in law enforcement.
So obviously at risk of the lives of our law enforcement officers, what does it do to innocent bystanders?
It's increased for everybody. That's just the reality.
But that 15-second phone call is just too burdensome to these woke public officials.
We'll let you comment on that.
The ranking member tells us that the association that represents big city police chiefs supports sanctuary policy. Sheriff Wagner, who appoints these big city police chiefs?
As far as I'm aware, they're done by a mayor or a council.
Basically woke Democratic officials.
Correct. Well, I shouldn't say correct on the woke. I don't know.
Well, great. Well, anyway, thank you very much for your testimony. That concludes my questions, and that concludes...
So there you go. I mean, it's just common sense, but the Democrats don't see it that way. They just want to keep making excuses. They want to say why immigrants should be left alone. They don't commit crimes. I don't want to reiterate. I've done that through this entire video. I think these videos demonstrate why the Democrats lost, why we need to continue to fight, why Donald Trump is deporting these immigrants. And if we're going to have such a large immigration again in the future, if we're going to let such a large group of people come in, they should be vetted. And if the Democrats really wanted immigration, that's what they would fight for, not sit there and mock Donald Trump's new fiscal policies, not mock MAGA, that has nothing to do with immigration. They instead of using their platform to discuss the topic of this committee, they just use it as a method to attack, to form a political attack, which makes sense. It burns my ass. It needs to stop. Anyways, as usual, thanks for watching. And also, please remember, like and subscribe. And as always, remember, what burns my ass probably burns your ass too. Thanks for watching.